Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark. I was not expecting it to just like that. Not used to that. I'm learning how to do this whole StreamYard thing right now, but thanks for being here, everybody. Welcome to What's New in Prisma. We have a great show in store for you guys today. We're going to be talking about new things that Prisma has put out recently. One, client extensions. It's a ready feature. We're going to be talking about how to build client extensions, what you can use them for, really dive deep into that, make some cool examples. Sabin's going to be showing off all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to be going into Pulse, and I'll be giving a demo on Pulse and talking about that. And how client extensions kind of work in with that. So if you guys are new here, please, ask questions in the chat. We have two wonderful other developer advocates here with me today. We have Sabin and Jon. If Sabin can pull us up on the screen, there's Sabin, there he is, and there's Jon. Cool. Thanks for coming. Yeah, so I'm having some internet problems today, guys. So Sabin is clicking all the buttons behind the scenes. So it's a little bit a little weird, but I think we'll make it work out. But welcome, Sabin, Jon. You want to say your hellos and all that?
Yeah. I'm Sabin. You've seen me on the stream before. Developer advocate here. Like Jon said, like Mark said, we've got a bunch of cool stuff coming out with this release. Client extensions are GA. So I'll be demoing that a bit on the stream a bit later. But yeah, exciting stuff.
Yeah, and I'm Jon, special guest, I guess, an episode or two ago. I guess two now. Really excited to be here. Love What's New in Prisma. Love chatting with folks and seeing all the cool stuff we're getting out the door.
Sweet. Cool. So yeah, like I said, we're going to be jumping into it's a little bit different than what we normally do on What's New in Prisma. Normally we kind of go over everything. And we kind of want to try something a little bit different where we kind of focus on one specific thing that we think is going to be really popular with you guys. And that's going to be client extensions. And Sabin, Jon, maybe you guys could give a good overview of what that is, talk about that, and why we're so excited about it and why we want to, talk about it today on What's New in Prisma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, client extensions. I guess I'll start and then you can share your thoughts too, Jon. Client extensions are just a powerful tool to be able to add custom functionality to your Prisma client, and not just to like adding functions to your Prisma client, but you can also manipulate the responses of queries. You can manipulate the client itself rather than the individual functions on each model. There's a bunch of different ways you can actually extend and manipulate the Prisma client that gives you the flexibility to pretty much do whatever you want. It's like if you used middlewares before, those are being deprecated now. And the reason those are being deprecated is because client extensions covers everything that middlewares could do and a significant amount more. So there's just a lot you can do with these. It's without showing you some code, it's a little bit hard to like justify what I'm saying. So we'll get into the demo later. But just know that you can do a lot with these client extensions. And I foresee a lot of people building packages that export these extensions for other people to use.
Yeah, and I think Sabin pretty much covered everything I was going to say, but I did want to hone in on this specific notion of middleware. As Sabin said, middleware within Prisma is deprecated because we feel. Let me clarify. Middleware is not going away. We would just highly recommend you use client extensions over middleware. We think it's just a better API and does everything that middleware does and more. But the way that I like to think about client extensions and sort of this way of tailoring the Prisma client to your specific needs is middleware, because I come from a backend development background. And so when I'm working with Node Express, using Node and Express without middleware is a nightmare. And so like middleware unlocks so many cool things you can do and makes your life so much easier. And we really hope that Prisma, I know and hope that Prisma client extensions will unlock that same level of usefulness in folks' code bases.
Yeah, it's good that you clarified that, because as soon as Sabin said we're replacing middleware, all the alarm bells went off in probably every developer's mind, like, oh, what do I got changed now? But no, yeah, that's the main point that I think we want to get across, is that client extensions are there to hopefully unlock more power than what middleware offers. So maybe to really represent that, we should jump into some of the examples that you have, Sabin. And really what this is going to be is Sabin's going to be running this, talking about this stuff, and me and Jon are going to be peppering them with questions. And hopefully you guys are asking questions in chat too. Please don't hesitate to do so. give Sabin some real difficult ones to answer, maybe he'll be able to,
Yeah, I'll
figure it
defer
out for
them
you.
to Mark.
I'll refer them to me. I'll refer them to John, and then we'll just go around in a circle for the rest of the stream. It'll be good.
Nice. Yeah, no, I'll try to answer any questions. Yeah, for sure though. I'll get my screen up and we can get going on something. This is going to be, I have like an extension that I want to build on stream, and I think I might build like maybe 1 or 2 other ones. And a lot of it's just going to be free form, like coming up with stuff as we go. So you can sort of get the experience of what a developer will be doing when they're developing their own extensions.
Sweet.
But to start off, let's just go ahead and get a project going. Should be quick. TypeScript. This is just the Try Prisma tool that sets up everything for you.
Yeah, this Try Prisma tool has saved me a lot of time personally. It's super good. Weren't you the one that made this, Sabin? Or at least, yeah, you made that? Yeah, it was super nice. I remember when I first started learning Prisma, this was like one of the ways I started. So
nice. Yeah, that's good. That was the goal for it, is just gives people an easy way to get going.
I know everybody's judging your terminal and your layout and your colors and stuff like that. Just
let them judge. Let them judge. I don't care.
I've been using Warp recently. It's kind of nice actually. I like it.
Yeah, I like Warp. File navigation on the right side. Once you start it, you can never go back. I can't even remember what it looked like on the left side. So. Let's see. I think the schema I've got here that it starts you off with, I think that's fine. I'll just leave that how it is. We're not really focused on data modeling in this, more just the extensions. So I'll do a db push just to get our database going. I think also before we start developing extensions, we're going to need some data to play around with so we know they're actually working. So I'll go ahead and set up a seed file and get this hooked up in here. You can go in your package.json, add a Prisma key, seed key in there. But that just hooks it up so that Prisma CLI knows how to actually run the seed file when you go for it.
This is where we need an AI extension that generates a seed file for us.
Yeah, that would be very nice.
Put that on the list. We'll get to it eventually. Hey, what's going on, Alex?
Hey. Okay, so bunch of setup, and then I can start talking again.
So, John, do you have any comments about what he's doing right now while he's typing? Because it might be difficult for him to type while he's talking.
I'm judging every single.
Yeah, I know. Me too, right? Me too.
Nice. Okay, setup's done. I can now start doing this. So what I'm going to do in the seed file is I'm just going to create a couple of users. I think we have users and posts in this model. So I'll just create just a couple of different users. And actually, I might have a seed file that I could just copy and paste in here, save us a little bit of time. Give me one
This is where
second.
I just go to ChatGPT and ask it to give me a seed object. It's like, all right,
there we go.
spit one out.
Yeah. Well, this is just as good. We've got a seed file now. So it's just going to create a bunch of users with all of our DevRel team's email addresses so that we can play around with some stuff. So with that all hooked up, I'll just run npx prisma db seed. And that should run the seed file against our database, and we've got data now.
Sweet.
So that was a bunch of setup just so that we can get going writing an extension that just got our database ready. So to start off, I'll create an extensions folder. You don't have to do that, but that's just where I like to put them. And the extension we're going to build is, I'm going to call it get values. And what this is going to do is it's essentially going to add to the find many query that Prisma provides. And what it's going to do is it's going to take the responses, all of the data that you get back, and you can provide it a key. So for example, in this situation, the function might, you might give it the email key. And what it's going to do is it's going to return an array of all the emails in the responses you get back. So that you don't have to do a .map, go over and pick out the email from each and every user record you get back from the database. Yeah, and The cool part about this, though, and the part that makes it tricky, is that we don't just want this to work for the user model. We're going to build it in sort of a generic way so that it works on any model. And I'll sort of walk through how to do that with some of our magic types that we provide.
So yeah, so rather than doing this after you get the data from the client, we're doing it basically before it even returns, right? Or not before, but before it returns into your code. And say you were putting this into your whatever function you have, you don't have to worry about mapping it and grabbing that there. I think that's great. That's great use of extensions.
So to start the extension off, what we're going to do is go into here, and we're going to export a default function. And what this function is going to export is, copy the thing over. We have this helper called Prisma find extension. And within this function, you can actually get an instance of a future client, whatever client your extension is extending. And then you can return a client with the extends keyword.
So does that allow you to daisy chain extensions if you'd like to?
Yeah, exactly.
Sweet.
Yeah, and that's another actual use case that I've thought about for an extension, is just an extension to even more easily daisy chain these by just passing like an array of extensions, and you can have it loop through. Just yet another use case that you can use extensions for.
Yep, that's cool.
Yeah. So for the function that we're going to build, we have a couple different options here. If we look at the options, we have client, model, query, result. Name is just a way to name your extension, which I won't worry about for now. These all allow you to do different things to your client. And for us, what we're going to be doing with this extension is updating the model. And actually, in our case, it'll be updating every model that Prisma has. And when I say model, I mean, like if you do Prisma dot, I'll show you here, Prisma dot, we have these post and user models. It's going to be for every one of those models that we're extending. And we have a nice keyword to help you do that. You can choose post, user, or you can do all models. And that's what we're going to be going for. Nice. And within here, you don't get any really type options to choose from. And that's because this is where you can add your own functions. So it's allowing you to put in any sort of options for you there.
Yeah, I think it's super important to sort of like note here is that within all models, your type safety is lost a little bit because Prisma can't know, especially if you're doing something like Sabin's doing right now. You're defining an extension for all possible schemas, and so it's very difficult to determine typing within all models, and so we are sacrificing a little bit of type safety within this all models call to guarantee you type safety outside of it. And so we'll sort of see down the line how that plays out. But before people are sort of scared and upset about type safety kind of like falling apart here, like it's going to be okay. I promise.
Yeah. And that's a good point to make, because when I first go through this, it's going to be sort of a dumb extension. We're going to make it work. But then afterwards, I'm going to show some of like the Prisma utility types that we can use to make these type safe in a generic way to any model. But
you can make it you can add your own type safety into this, right? Like so if you're scared about it, you can just make it yourself, which I think is that's a good compromise, right?
Yeah, making it yourself is possible, but some of these utility types will help quite a bit. You'll sort of see why in a second. I actually went through the exercise of making this whole extension that I'm building, not using the utility types at first, and then I used them afterwards. And it literally saved me like 50 lines of a TypeScript type this long. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, you don't have to be a TypeScript wizard, I guess, to do this. But okay, so to add a new function to all models, what we're going to do is I'll add an async function called getValues. And with that, what I'll do is, so this defines the function. This now says that every single model should have another function called getValues along with find many find unique, all of those other ones. And we
Sweet.
can validate that here. We should see get values. Let me see. Oh, I'm not extending the client. We can't validate that there yet, but just know if you were to do prisma.user. You should see get values as an option. And so this is going to need to take in a couple of things. The very first thing is field. Oops. So this will be a string. Yeah, I guess I'll do that. Yeah, this will be a string. And what this field is going to be is the actual name of the field that you want to pick out of your query results and loop through. And then we also want a where, which will be just a Prisma filter for the find many function. That way you can filter out your query and then pick the pieces out as you go. And yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and type these now. So it stops yelling at me. And there we go. So at this point, we now have a function where you can give it the field you want and the filter to run on the query.
Very nice.
Yeah. The next piece is something that uses one of our Prisma utilities, and that just allows you to get the context of the Prisma client that happens to be using this extension. And that may not make sense yet, what I just said, but it will in just a second. Get extension context, this. And so what this does is it allows you to grab the extension that happens to be calling this new function you're adding to it, and it returns that extension's object structure, basically, so that you can perform its operations within this function. This allows you to use the Prisma client using the extension and run, for example, the find many function, which is what we're going to do with it. If you want to see that in action, I'm going to create a new const called result, and it's going to be equal to await, and I'll say context as any. And this is just that because we can't really get the type of the Prisma client that's calling this extension. Because like John said, it could be any client with any sort of model. But that doesn't really hurt us too much as far as type safety goes here, because all we really need to do is run the find many function. And here we'll pass in the where clause that we got from the function arguments up here. And we'll pass in a select. And this select is going to be, we want to pass in the field that we passed into the function and just say true. So what we're doing right now is we're grabbing the context of the Prisma client that invoked this function. We're using that context to run find many with the where clause we passed in. And then we're saying only select the field that we passed into the function arguments. How's that so far? I feel like I'm moving pretty fast through this, or is that pretty straightforward?
I think I'm getting it.
No.
Go ahead,
yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Sorry,
Okay.
Go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just gonna say if anybody in chat has any questions, please ask. I'm already curious on like how you could define what you want in that field as along with getting the field, but I'm sure you might get there. But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, so that's kind of the cool thing about Prisma Client Extensions and that get extension context line specifically is you're extending a Prisma client within this, but the extension has the like reference to the existing client, so you're still like reaching out of your own like extension and like grabbing the client and then doing things with it. Essentially any operation you can do with a standard Prisma client, you could do in here. So in this example, we're getting values and doing a select essentially, but you know, I don't want to say the possibilities are endless because that's pretty cliche, but like it really does feel that way. It really does feel like if you have a very specific use case, you can do this and you can make your own extension.
Nice.
Yeah. So in chat, we have some questions about the user model being specified. I think that's actually something we can clean up now. So like the where clause being a user where input. I believe we can make that a generic where input. But But yeah, I'll leave you to that, Sabin.
Yeah, Stasi, I think is how you pronounce it. If not, I apologize. Yeah, I think you're referring to right here, the Prisma.userWhere input. That's going to be changed in just a second. I'm going to finish writing the logic for the actual extension first, and then we'll get into some of those type things, because that ends up being a little bit of a rabbit hole, because there's a lot you could do with these types. So I want to be sure to explain those in detail. And I see Mike also, thank you. I appreciate that. Perfect pace. That's good. Some of this stuff is nitty gritty and I don't want to like rush through it. It looks like Copilot here has what I was going to write anyway, so I'll just use that. It's mapping through all of the query results. Find many is going to return an array of users or posts or whatever you call this on. So I'm just going to map through all of those and pick out the field that we specified and throw it into a new array. So it's going to be an array of whatever field you wanted. So that's the extension. At this point, this would kind of work. Logically, it's going to work. It's going to grab all your records, pick out those pieces of data. But the thing is, the type is strange right now. It's expecting a user_where input, which is not going to work if you wanted to do this with like the post field. And I'm just going to go ahead and show this so that we can see it in action and see why we need these types. Over here, I'm going to import the get values. So what I did here, I just imported the extension that I wrote, and then I used the extends keyword and passed it in. And that's how you extend the Prisma client there. So now I should be able to go into prisma.user. Now, as I mentioned before, we have this get values function, and that'll be the same if we did this on post. We should have get values as well, because we extended all models. So it's going to get values. I'll pass it, we'll say an email. And then here, if we look at the type safety we have right now, it's going to show us a where filter, or I guess the types for a where filter for the user model. That's not what we want, because we could be doing a post. And then an even more difficult one to consider is that within this post, the post table doesn't have a column called email. So what I would expect when running this or when writing this is that this should have a red squiggly line under it, because there's no email field to even pull out of this. So with some of the magic Prisma types that we have, we can actually get that working. And I'll start to show that here. In order to actually do this, we need to have sort of a generic type up here. And I'll just call that T. And what that's going to represent is the type of the Prisma client that is using this extension. And we can denote that here using this, I guess, this argument. This gets passed into every JavaScript function as the initial argument. It's normally left out. If you leave it out, it just gets passed and inferred. But you can also define it explicitly if you want to be sure of the type there. The next thing that we're going to do, I guess we could tackle, where did my where? There it is. Next, we could tackle the type of the where filter. I think that's one of the bigger ones here. So this piece here. What we want this to be is the type of a where filter on any model that you're calling this function on. And that's where this T type is going to come in. This represents the current model that you're using. And what we can do is we actually have a helper in the Prisma namespace called args. And what you can do with this is you can pass in basically the type of a model and specify a function. So you get some type safety here with that. I'm going to pick define many. So this is going to say that we want this where clause to be the type of the arguments you pass to whatever model you're using, find many function. and we specifically want to pull out the where object that you can pass into this. So with just that, we should now see that on post, we have ID, published, title, author. If we switch this over to user, if I would spell it right, now we see post, name, email, and all of that. So
Nice.
That's the type to do that there. The thing about these types that I will say, and this is not a permanent thing, but I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, John, you might know more than me. I don't know if these are like explicitly documented anywhere. They're mentioned in places, and I know there is one page in the docs that uses these and sort of explains them, but I don't think we have like a...
I'm so glad you asked. We're actually expanding this portion of the docs right now. If it hasn't gone out already, if Alex is still in the chat, he will correct me, I'm sure. But yeah, so this concept of type safety within your extensions, it is really, really critical. And we recognize that, line 10 there for a lay person might just kind of seem like gibberish. And so we are really trying to expand our documentation to make stuff like that easy. So yeah, in this, it's just saying T is any model, find many is the operation on that model, and then where is the clause you're selecting. So yeah, we are absolutely expanding that documentation.
Nice.
Yeah, so we also have a comment there in the chat from Mike. Without looking deeper into it, can extensions work with migrations or reset or etc.? One thing I would love to do for things like MPX to Prisma DB push is that if a reset triggers to add additional steps. So I'll take a crack at this, but Marcus, maybe you might want to correct me. So Prisma extensions are specifically extensions on the Prisma client, not like Prisma migrations or Prisma DB push. Those are sort of like siblings to the Prisma clients. Prisma migrates like a sibling to Prisma client, but is actually not affected by these extensions.
Yeah, the way you run these migrations and resets and things like that would be through Prisma CLI, which is a completely separate tool. It's not part of the JavaScript client, like John said. What you can do with that, and we've seen people do this as well, is using scripts like shell scripts is how you can sort of compose sets of functionality that you'd like to do with the Prisma CLI commands. So you could have a script that you run instead of, Prisma DB push. You can have it do some processing first by running a couple of commands, and then run it. That's actually a good point that you make that, and I think maybe at some point, showing some examples of that would be good so that you sort of learn how to do this. But the general sentiment there is yes, sort of creating a script that does that for you.
Yeah, but so to put my very much dev advocate hat on, Mike, that is an awesome feature request, and we're always looking for more feature requests for all of our products over on GitHub. So github.com/prisma/prisma. If you wouldn't mind sort of searching there, see if someone's already said it, and if not, please do suggest it, because yeah, I think expanding the concept of extensions to migration extensions is a really cool idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll jump back into some of these types. So we're like halfway there. We've got this where filter typed. The next one we want to do is the field, and just to reiterate what we're doing here, we want to only be able to pass in a field that actually exists on the model as a query result. So the way we can do that is we have something similar to this prisma.args, except it's called prisma.result. So over here, I'm going to do prisma.result, and we'll pass in T as well, which is the context of the model that you're running this against. This actually takes in 3 arguments. The second one is the type of the query, or sorry, not the query, but the type of the object you're passing in to the select statement of this function. For now, we'll leave this null. and then the name of the function that you're actually invoking. And this will be find many. So yeah, this null piece, I want to elaborate on this a little bit. When you do a find many, you're going to pass in a select statement where you pick out the individual fields that you want from your model, and you only return those as your query results. This represents that object that you would pass in, because we only want to allow you to pull fields that are available in that model. I'm leaving this null because this allows this field type to be any of the fields that you could possibly pull from the model, because we're not really running a select in here other than that one field that we want. And just to show what that means and why is this complaining? Oh yeah, so find many, here's one thing too. Find many returns an array. We want to represent the type of just the first index of the array so that we can get the fields out. That messes me up usually. So now what we're going to see in here is, if we look at the types, this should still be broken, and that's expected, I think. So I have like a project that I did this on before. And if I go into the field, okay, so I see what I did. Just to explain what I did here, I moved the Prisma result up here into another generic just to keep it out of the arguments, to clean it up a little bit. What I'm missing here is I need a key of, because what this is going to return is an object, the type of an object with a bunch of different keys in it. And we don't want this, this field argument to be an object. We just want it to be one of the keys in this type object. So we're saying that you can only pass in a string that matches any of the keys in the first array index of the query results. So it's a little bit of a complicated type, but if you sort of understand what this piece here does, it begins to make a little bit more sense. We're drilling into the first index and selecting all the keys out of that object. So now if we go back over to here and control space, we should see email, ID, name. These are the only options we're allowed to pass into this. And then if we go over to post, it should change. Now we have author ID, content ID, published, and title.
Very nice.
And then just to sort of wrap this up, I know this has been a little bit longer, but right now this the response of this function is any. We're not really defining the response type, and we can do better. We can change that. So what we want to do is we want to say that the result from our query that we run right here when we do the find many should be k. And just to remind you, k represents the results of the find many function with nothing being passed into the select filter. So now we can remove this any here. We know that this will be an index of k, so it'll represent this. And then we're selecting out the field. So if we go back over to our script now, we should see that this represents a string, number, Boolean, or null, and it'll be an array. And that's exactly what we want. Those are the possible values that Prisma Client can return from a query. And to wrap this up, I'll console.log the data we get. Let's just say we're pulling out the, from the user model, we're pulling out the emails. And I'll run this. And here we could see it actually worked. We just got an array of email addresses. We didn't have to map over. We didn't have to pull out the values. This was honestly a pretty simple extension, but it gets a little hairy with these types. So this is probably one of the more I don't know, involved examples with these types here, but I wanted to make sure to show.
Well, yeah, I
something.
mean, it shows the power of what you can do, and this is just like the beginning of it too. And
Yeah.
I think it would be really helpful if we made this a repo, Sabin, if you uploaded this as like an example somewhere so people could use it. I mean, I would use it in my own project, and now I don't have to write it. So, you know.
Yeah, and we actually, I'll find the link as we move on to the next section. I'll post it in the chat. But we have a repository hosted by Prisma that has a bunch of extensions we've pre-built. I'll just add this one to it, and if you're interested in the others, we have that there.
Sweet.
Yeah, but you had a great question from Alberto in the chat, which is it's kind of overwhelming the amount of work that can leverage Prisma extensions. Curious what you recommend. I'm curious what Alberto, what you might mean by overwhelming there. I would kind of, and maybe again, this is my bias. I would kind of reframe that as it's extremely expansive what you can do with Prisma Client Extensions. I think maybe what your question is asking, when should you use client extensions and when shouldn't you use client extensions? It's a good overwhelming. Okay, great.
Okay.
I'm glad. Okay, we're all good here. Everyone's happy. Yeah, so I think the question boils down to like, when should you use client extensions and when shouldn't you use client extensions? Yeah, so if we're framing it that way, what I would sort of think about here is we have 4 types of extensions, and Sabin sort of mentioned that briefly at the top of the example, which is client, query, result, and model. So in those specific cases, like there's a lot you can do. Oh yeah, here we go. So Sabin can sort of do these kind of things. I would say that there are way more cases where you should use client extensions than you shouldn't. I think maybe Sabin or Mark can hop in here, but the one case where I say you shouldn't use a client extension is specifically within model extensions. You should not extend a built-in model field or a built-in model method. So you should not try and extend like find many, because the way that client extensions work right now is that they are not composable. So if you overwrite user.findMany in a client extension, and then you make another client extension that also overwrites findMany, the second client extension will replace the first. It doesn't combine them or try and like use them as middleware. It totally overwrites it. And that's intentional. That might change in the future. We're still sort of gathering feedback on that and what should happen. But as of right now, if you want to modify an existing result, use a result or use a query. Don't just like overwrite findMany.
And I think the only, I wouldn't even call it an exception, but the only time you might want to do that is if you're like on the findMany function wanting to add arguments to it that you don't have to pass directly in through the Prisma client function. In that case, like John said, that's a dangerous thing to do because other extensions could override that. In that case, you'd want to make sure that if you are overriding built-in functionality, that you're doing it on a Prisma client instance that you know is only going to have that extension. Like it's built specifically to do this one thing. And even in that case, you'll probably want to do that as a separate function, not overriding a built-in function. I see Mike has a question, and this is sort of why I was iterating that, is like, what about things like soft deletions? In that case, you'll probably want to overwrite the delete or delete many.
Yeah.
It may be a good idea in that case to add a soft delete function instead of just overriding the built-in one, or having a dedicated instance of Prisma client that runs these soft deletes that you extend with this one extension.
making your own soft delete. That way you still have the normal, but you can have your own if you need it. I think that highlights a good reason of when to use extensions. Like I see two main reasons, and one of them being if there's something that the current client doesn't enable for specific use cases that you find you would like to have, like, throughout your entire application, or just if you're building a function and if you're doing something over and over and over again, after you get a response from the client, why not just make that an extension, right? I think those are the two main things I think about. If you keep it simple like that, it might not get as overwhelming as far as like what you can do, because it is very powerful.
Yeah, and Mike, what you can do with this too, like a soft deletion, is if you do add your own custom function called like soft delete or something, you can actually still take, like I showed in my example a little bit, you can take the types Prisma gives you and basically emulate the delete function. You can have the input be the same as the Prisma.delete function. You can have the results be the same, just using the types that we give you. But just have it run the soft delete instead. So it can functionally and on a TypeScript level be the same as a delete function. Just under the hood, it works a little bit different.
Yeah, go ahead, John. Mark.
Oh, I was going to say, well, it doesn't necessarily overwrite, correct? Like, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. If you extend an extension, right, you can just add more functionality to it, or am I mistaken when I say that?
So extensions themselves are composable. So you can extend a Prisma client multiple times. Specifically, model methods are not. That is like the exception in the like case that I want to say, like, please don't do that. So and there's always exceptions, like if you know what you're doing, like, and you want to try it, go for it. But I will say that model methods are not composable for a reason. They may be in the future, but they are not right now. And so, yeah, this goes into what, Mike, what you're saying is what you're talking about there is when you're returning objects from your database, you want to remove certain fields because they are PII, and you would like a default way to like not return those because you don't want to deal with those being exposed. I think that's totally reasonable, and that sort of goes into that get values thing that Sabin has. For your code base, you could even write something like, let's say user dot safe find many or find many safe. And so that could work exactly like find many, except in the results, you just always say that you can't pick those certain fields. And that would, I think, you can then add things on top of that, right? With linter or formatter rules to say you have to use these, you can't use the existing ones. But then again, if you're not extending your client in any other way, maybe it's okay to sort of overwrite those existing functionalities. It's just your mileage may vary, and it's super dependent on the individual use case. But yes, what you're saying is exactly another reason why you could use Prisma Client Extensions.
If you found the demo that I did interesting, and you're like Mike is, if you're starting to think through all these different use cases, please check out these docs. They do a pretty good job of explaining like the capabilities of extensions and the different ways you can use them. What I showed you was just adding a custom method or field to your model, but we can also extend the client itself. We can extend, or I guess create custom Prisma client queries. And you can even modify the results. So if you want like a computed field with 2 different columns, you can do that with this. So there's a lot more to extensions than I could show. I didn't go through all of them because that would be like a 3-hour workshop on stream, and I don't know if everyone wants to sit through that. So yeah, go check it out on your own if you're interested.
And you can always reach out to us too if you're reading something in this part and you have more questions. Always join our Discord, Slack, wherever, and reach out to us. We can help you with it as well. I'm loving the questions. Thanks for asking them. It only encourages the conversation and makes us, excited about what you're building. I see a ton of examples in the GitHub as well. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing I'm excited about with extensions. I'm not sure. I'm sure John and Sabin, you guys are the same thing. It's seeing what the community is going to build and then what and how people are going to use what people have built to build their own stuff. I think extensions really enables kind of that open source sharing of ideas that Prisma is built around. So sweet. So if there's no more questions about client extensions, we have about another 15 minutes left of this stream. Thanks so much for everybody coming and being a part of this client extension section of this. We're going to be moving into me doing a demo over Pulse real quick. Unless Sabin, you have anything else you want to show off. John, you have anything else you want to talk about for client extensions really fast before we jump over there and do some Pulse stuff?
The only thing I mentioned is Sabin, since you're sort of the controller of the stream right now, like Sabin says, or like Mark said, please hop into our Slack, please hop into our Discord, and Sabin can share links to both of those, and chat with us. We'd love to hear sort of what you want to do with client extensions, and then we'd love to see what you are doing with client extensions. Yeah. There are cool examples out there in the wild already, and we're excited to see more.
Yeah. And I'll post a link to the Discord and Slack in a second. We have channels called Made with Prisma in both of those. If you have a cool client extension, post it there so that we can give you thumbs up and stars and hearts and make you feel good. Because we absolutely will do that.
And we also want to talk to more of you guys that build cool stuff with extensions and just Prisma in general. And we want to bring you guys on the streams like this and just pick your brain and figure out why you built what you did and how you did it. So if you're interested in that, always share your stuff because you might be a candidate for one of our next What's New in Prismas or one of our next shows coming up.
Cool. I'm gonna pull my screen off and I'll start getting those links for you guys.
Sweet. Yeah. So I guess for this ending little part here about Pulse, I'm just going to show you guys a demo real quick of how to use Pulse, and you might be like, what is Pulse if you haven't been following Prisma socials or anything like that. We created a managed change data capture service for you guys to be able to use on top of your database. And essentially what it does is it streams real-time events from your database into your application, no matter where your database was updated from. So you can have multiple different apps connected to the same database, all doing different things. And your database will be sending out those events to any of your apps. And then you can have your apps react in real time. What we'll be doing in this little demo is I'm going to show you guys how to set that up in your code. I'm going to show you a response from the database or an event being streamed to your application from the database, and show you guys kind of the new with Pulse client extension. And that's kind of how it flows from the client extensions into Pulse. If you guys have questions about Pulse, please don't hesitate to ask. We're currently in early access with Pulse. So we're getting people in, we're helping you guys learn how to use it. And honestly, it's in that part of the development where we really value you guys' feedback. When we always value your feedback, but this part of the development is where your requests and your ideas can really help change the trajectory of what Pulse is. And if you're using it and you're thinking about, oh man, it'd be really cool if it did X, Y, Z, it's always another reason to reach out to us. And we can work with you on using Pulse in your applications and then making Pulse better. So I'm going to jump into this and show you guys the power of Pulse. I really like this. Super excited. This is the one thing that I've been working on since I joined Prisma was probably about 2 months ago. So I've been all in on the real-time database stuff going on. Sabin, if you can go ahead and click the thing there. There we go. All right, sweet. All right, cool. So that was my cat. Please don't do that, cat. Thank you very much. I don't need you to knock over stuff right now. So we have just a basic demo application here and a database set up as well. This is based off of our Try Prisma, or not our Try, I'm sorry, not Try Prisma, our Hello Prisma application you can find in the beginning of our documentation. And the main thing that we'll be doing here is updating our database, adding records, updating those records, and then seeing those come into our application in real time. There's a few things you have to do to get this set up. We have to install the with Pulse client extension here. And this is another really cool thing that we're going to be able to do with your client extensions, and you can make them packages and people can just install them directly into their apps just like this. And that we use client extensions to be able to create the with Pulse extension so that way you guys can use it, which I think is a really cool thing. Next thing, all you have to do is get this API key. We have our cloud project dashboard. There is a part of this where you have to get your database ready for Pulse. You need to turn on a few settings. Right now we have Postgres support. We're going to be trying to get into other support in the future where we have MySQL and, you know, whatever else we can do to, you know, enable you guys to make awesome things. So if you have other databases you're wanting, but the setup to get your database Pulse ready is where the developer advocates and our documentation will really come into play. I don't really want to go into this now because it is a little bit of a long process, but that just really just depends on your provider, right? So one thing you have to do on Postgres, you have to turn on logical replication. You have to make sure your database is publicly accessible. And then once you go into the Cloud Projects dashboard, you'll connect your database and you'll get this API key. Again, we'll help you with that if you're interested in this. It's not really that big of a deal. I just don't, it's kind of boring. So I don't really want to show that on stream. Next, we went ahead and made a Prisma client that is extended with Pulse, just like Sabin was doing in the last example with his client extension. We made an extends with Pulse, and that's the package that we installed here. And then we're just passing in our API key. And this allows us to be able to use the subscribe method inside of our Prisma client calls. So inside of our main function here, we have a variable called consubscription. And this is just a waiting for a response from the user table for subscribe, for the subscribe method. And this subscribe method basically keeps over that connection, or the wait really kind of keeps over the connection. But the subscribe method is what's used to be able to access the data from the event that happens. And we'll be able to add filters to this, and we'll get into that in just a second. So really, so I can stop talking and boring you guys, let's go ahead and just like jump into what this actually looks like. I'm going to run this file, ts node index.ts, and then we get a response here. Hello from, this is just a tenant ID that we use for debugging purposes. This is probably actually going to be gone by the time we go into like general access. But this is it running. So we have this subscription up and running right now from our Pulse subscription. I'm going to go ahead and add in a user here who has been talking in chat the most. I think it's been Mike, right? So we're going to say, Mike, you work at Prisma now, Prisma.io, and then we'll add Mike.
Immediately hired, right?
Immediately. And as you can see, the database sent the database created an event which Pulse read and sent straight to our application. So we have our action create, and we have the record that was created. And I think you can already kind of see the power of this, where you can do whatever you want once you get this. So this is kind of a reactive process. If I wanted to do something specific with this data, send out an email because the user's been created, send out a notification, whatever it might be, you can just completely automate this without having to do any extra checks on your database. You don't have to do an API call to be able to get, hey, who's new, or check it on a, we say you have a cron job running or something like that. It's automatically updated using Pulse. And it's reacting to the event coming in, which I think is awesome. But say you don't want all the events. So we have a create event right here. Let's also do an update event. We'll name this person back to Alice, because apparently Sabin was Alice for a second there. Save the changes. And we have the update come in. So we have 2 events coming in right now, and they would happen, simultaneously or wherever they happen from. Wherever they're triggered, it could be triggered from any application, really. But say we don't want any create events. Say this is just an update subscription that we want to make sure gives us information whenever a user changes something on their profile, right? So we'll do an update filter flag in here, or a condition flag, whatever you want to call it. And basically this is just saying that I want all the events that are update events on my user table. So what this does is this enables you to have kind of a different chain of event listening, and you can set up multiple different, when's my offer letter soon? Yeah, we'll get it. We'll have to talk to a few people. We'll have to send it to you in a second, but what this does is allow you to set up different types of subscriptions based on what you want to happen. So you're not filtering things out yourself and doing that on your end. It's already handled inside of the client extension. So for update, let's create another record, and we'll show that we're not going to get it. This is just for sake of, yes, it works, right? So let's make another person. Who else has been talking? Alberto. All right. So save the changes here, and it's created, but there was no update inside of our console here, right? So this, like I said, this will allow us to only check for things that are updated. So let's change Alberto. Sorry, buddy, you don't work at Prisma anymore. Where are you going to work? Let's say google.io, because that's a real email address. Save changes, and now it's updated. So this will allow you to have multiple different, event streams going at the same time, which I think, the simplicity around this really unlocks a lot of the cool ideas that you guys are going to be able to come up with. And I really am excited to see what you guys do come up with inside of this. We have a few questions to chat. Let me go ahead and catch up. How many times are the events fired? Exactly once, or at least once? The event is fired at exactly once, I believe. I mean, like as soon as it happens.
It's exactly once delivery.
Yeah, it's exactly once. I was kind of confused on what you meant by at least once, but yeah. So one time is.
I think where that question is getting, and thanks Ankur for asking that leading question. I like it. What if you missed the event and you needed it for some reason? That's something we're working on. We're looking at delivery guarantees for Pulse, and as it's in preview, we're sort of feeling this out and working through the issue there. But from what the team has been saying, that's high on the priority list, and that's something that we're going to be working on. And as well as a service where you can actually sort of go back in time and get events that you had missed in a persistent storage. So I don't want to say any like timeline on any of those things, because a lot of those are concepts right now. They're for sure going to happen, but they're concepts. So, if that's something you're thinking about, just know that it's on our radar, and we're working through those.
Yeah, and that also ties into what Mike asked about as well, which is like a low code, no code solution to get those events pushed into something else. Nothing like that exists right now, but we are thinking about these things with Pulse, and would appreciate any and all feedback there.
Yeah, Mike, I'm glad I'm glad that's where your thought process went like immediately here, because that sort of validates what we're working on, because that is another topic that we actually for the next quarter have planned to sort of think through and look through.
And this is why we talk about this stuff now, and why we put it into early access, so that way you guys can bring this stuff up and we can advocate for it inside of Prisma and say, hey, we should focus on this, right? So that's a great thing to bring up. I think I'm not going to say this right, but Yagami, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. I just wanted to say hello to you. All right, so we have our updated
light from Death Note.
Oh, I see. I haven't watched Death Note. That's on my list. It's on my list of anime, but I haven't watched Death Note. I just finished My Hero Academia though, and that was good. That's a good one. All right. So say we wanted update events from a specific user, right? So we can get another layer deep on this, which I think really helps as well. So you can have all your events. You could have just create, just update, or just delete, and then there's another layer on top of that we can do, where we want to check for a specific thing happening to a record where the data matches after something has happened. So it's going to make more sense once I start typing. So we'll add an after object into this, and what this is saying is, after the update has happened, the record that is being returned in the event needs to match whatever's inside of here, right? So if I say I want after the email to equal, whoops, I'm hitting all the wrong buttons. Apologies. Mike at prisma.io, right? What this will do is it will look for an update event on the user table, where after the event has happened, the email of that record is still Mike at prisma.io. And to verify that, we'll just run our file once more. And let's go ahead and update John. John got fired. He works at Google now as well. Save one change. And again, because we're not matching this criteria, it's not going to update. But if we update Mike and say Mike is Mikey, sorry, I don't know if you actually go by that. You probably don't, but Mikey, right?
Mike, thanks for hanging out. Have fun at your meetings, but definitely join us on the next episodes. I'd like to chat more.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for being here, man. Really appreciate all the good conversation, for sure. But and as he's leaving, his update came in through Pulse. So I think this was a very simple example of how to use Pulse. And one thing I want to be doing in the future, and I think a lot of us are going to be doing in the future, is showing off different ways to use Pulse. We have a few example projects that we're thinking about internally on, hopefully to inspire some creativity on how you could use this stuff. But I think the power of being able to grab events directly from the database as they happen, and then build apps around that react to those events coming in. I think that's something that is really going to hopefully save developers a lot of time, but then also unleash a lot of cool ideas for you guys when you're building things. Let's see if we have any other questions. Do you have an update many or upsert many function at least? I'm sorry. At least now.
For that question, hopefully I'm pronouncing this right, Chathula, are you referring to on Prisma Client, how we have like a create many functions, find many functions? Are you looking for upsert many and update many? I'll preemptively answer that question. If you are looking for that, the update and upsert functions will update many records. Whatever criteria you pass in, it will update any record that matches that criteria. Yeah, if you could just clarify sort of what you were meaning there, that'd be great.
So one thing that might be confusing about Pulse is like, how do you get this actually set up in your database? And I talked about it a little bit earlier, but the main thing that is happening inside of Pulse is it's reading the events that happen to your database to be able to get them. It manages that whole change data capture service or system for you. So there is a little bit of a setup period where you have to get your database set up. But actually we have a hackathon coming up next week, and me and Sabin have some pretty cool ideas on how to kind of make databases for you guys that might have Pulse already created for you, or Pulse already running for you. So if we can get that working, we might have some cool videos coming out and some cool content coming out around how to use Pulse with that. So you guys can just jump in and get the ground running. And if you're interested in Pulse after watching this, go ahead and send any of us here a DM or join our Discord or sign up at it's prisma.io/Pulse, and we'll get you into the early access so we can start helping you guys use Pulse.
Yeah, and so I have a couple things. First, Chathula, yeah, different records. So yeah, the update function and the upsert function will allow you to update many records. So I think that's what you're looking for. And then what you were saying, Mark, about the Pulse, yeah, definitely go sign up. And for setting up databases for you, I have, I'm debating whether to post this in the chat. I guess I just will, it won't hurt. I have a Docker container that you can spin up and use, which actually has a Postgres database set up that's Pulse ready. So if you do get access to Pulse,
Sweet.
if you do start using it and you want a way to set up a database easily, just pull this container down, start it up, and then you'll have to use something like ngrok to expose the container to the public internet so you can connect Pulse to it. But once you do that, it's up and running, ready to go. It's like 3 steps to get going.
Sabin, do you want to share your screen and maybe show an example for Cthulhu here? Or I'm sorry, I probably didn't say that right. You want to show an example so
yeah.
maybe they can understand a little bit better on what you're talking about?
Yeah, let me see here. Let me get my screen ready.
Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot there. But
no, it's okay. No, it's a pretty easy one to just show. So I'll pull your screen off, put mine on. There we go. Yeah, so Cthulhu, what you're looking for is, let me reread. Say I need to update user ID equals 1, name, user ID equals 2 to John. Okay, so that is a different situation. That's where you're going to be updating with different filters. So I see where the issue is there now. For that use case, that probably would currently be written in multiple update statements, probably 2 different Prisma client queries.
Is that something we could solve with extensions?
That is something. That's what I was just going to say. Is that that is something you can solve with extensions, where you can pass it in an array of filters, basically, and updates, and then just loop through those and run them. And
yeah, I actually just had a conversation internally about this just before this call, and yeah, so this is a case where previous to client extensions, we would have said you need to do this in raw SQL as like an update clause. But with client extensions, you can move that raw SQL into a client extension and then like write a transaction and all that stuff within that. So yeah, that's totally possible within a client extension. And you will still have to dive into, you know, the transaction client and all that jazz, which is like a bit more advanced usage, but you can write it once in your client extension and then use that client extension everywhere.
Yeah, if we had more time on the stream, I would just go through and write the extension now and show you. I think it would probably take me like around 30 minutes to get it going though. So if you're not in it already, Chathula, join the Discord. I think we posted a link right here. Join the Discord. Re-ask your question there. That way I know like where you are. And I'll try to get something put together for you and just sort of show you how that would work.
Yeah, I think that'll be great. All right, sweet. Well, if there's no other questions in chat or anything, I think we're coming to the end of this stream. I hope you guys are excited about client extensions and Pulse as we are. You know, we built all this stuff to help you guys make cool stuff, and we're really excited about it. I'm already thinking about a lot of the ideas that I could build myself with some of this stuff. And really, client extensions, I think, is going to be a big thing. Like, I think the functionality behind that and being able to share these extensions across the community, and you know, being able to build out these extensions that people are asking for right now, and then just having them exist for people, I think it's going to be a great feature. So thanks everybody for joining today. Sabin, Jon, you guys have any final words for the stream?
I mean, I've said it a couple times, but go join the Discord. It's new. We're building a community there. There's already been a lot of great conversation and involvement there. So if you want to be part of that, go there. We had client extensions, but we also had another couple of features go into general availability for this release. So if you're curious about those, look at the release notes and give them a try. And I think that's it for me.
Sweet. Jon?
No, as always, Sabin's got it on lock. So
sorry.
No. I appreciate it. So yeah, thanks for having me on, Mark and Sabin. Really love talking about client extensions and Pulse, and you know, judging by the chat, I think we're going to see some awesome stuff soon.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Alberto, we'll make sure we send your appreciations to the team. I'm sure they'll be happy to hear that for sure.
Yeah. Oh, and I did just think of one more thing. The conversation in this stream has been great. Come back next time. We want to see you guys more. We want to keep these conversations going. So yeah, that was much appreciated.
Yeah, that's another thing we're trying to do, is we're trying to have more consistent shows and more consistent ways for you guys to communicate with us. That's why we have the Discord and why we're doing some of these new formats. So yeah, it was great. It was a great time. Maybe we'll do What's New in Prisma a little bit more often than we have in the past, if that's something that you guys are interested in chat. So all right, well, Sabin, can you lead us out of here, man, since you're the one with all the buttons, and we appreciate you guys being here. Thanks so much for joining us on What's New in Prisma, and we'll see you guys around the community.
Yeah. All right.